Hey, I just want to ask a question. Am I being arrested for something I didn't do?
You haven't been arrested, mate.
It's like, holy shit.
Okay.
When you hear of Tinder and online dating, you either think of that successful love story or that awkward moment. You never think of the impossible or the most dangerous, murder. What happened to Grace Mullane? And who did she meet? This story teaches that anything can happen to the best of us in online dating. Let's investigate. Our story starts across the pond from our usual in Essex, England. There lived Grace Mullane in a small town called Wickford. She was born on the 2nd of December 1996 to her loving parents David and Gillian. Grace grew up as a happy child alongside her two brothers Michael and Declan. Her father owned a successful construction business, and the family lived a fruitful life supported by it. Grace attended St Thomas More High School before enrolling into university, and in September 2018, she successfully graduated from the University of Lincoln, successfully completing a bachelor's degree in marketing and advertising. While at university, Grace worked a part-time job to save up so she could travel for a year after her graduation. And she would do just that. She was described by her family as a fun-loving free spirit. She was academic and creative, painting in her spare time, as seen here in her home. With a caring family, a strong degree, and a year of travelling planned ahead, Grace really did have the world at her feet. She had ambitions to create lifelong memories, and then afterwards take on her marketing career. Before that though, as a token of the kind of person that she really was, she cut off her long hair and donated it to a local charity that specialised in creating wigs for children undergoing cancer treatment. And after that, she packed her bags, waved her goodbyes, and boarded her flight to Peru. Grace visited South America for 6 weeks. She enjoyed her time, took in the scenery, and made some friends along the way. But an around-the-world trip is only around the world if you keep on going. So on November the 20th, she flew to New Zealand. Her journey started in the Upper North Island, where she was for 10 days, before she travelled down to Auckland on 30th of November. Things were going fine for her. She took the city's sights and attractions in, but she had no distinct agenda. And with her next flight booked in only 5 days' time, she took each moment as it came. But it was now December the 1st. The weekend had just started, and Grace's birthday was the next day. Being a sole traveller, Grace was looking outward for friends, and making use of apps like Tinder to get to know new people along her journey. There, she connected with an Auckland-raised man named Jesse Kempson. Jesse messaged Grace over Tinder, and eventually asked her out for drinks. Her messages back seemed cold at first, but Jesse remained persistent. Eventually, probably through lack of anything better to do, Grace accepted his offer, and the two met up for drinks in the local city centre. They found each other in Sky City, an entertainment complex in the heart of Auckland. There they shared a hug before diving over to Andy's Burger Bar for cocktails. Conversation at first seemed a little fragile, but the two warmed up to each other as time went on. After their first drinks, they visited a Mexican cafe for cocktails. 2 jugs of margarita and 1 of sangria, both ordered and paid for by Jesse. And next stop, the Bluestone Room. By now, the two really were starting to enjoy each other's company. They ordered beers, and were seen talking and laughing with each other, before sharing a kiss. As Jessie took a bathroom break, Grace sent a message to a friend back home in England. She'd previously told a friend in the exact same day that Jessie was an oil company executive looking to move to London in the next few months. This brought Grace hope for building a long-term friendship. So by now, the evening was going very well. A few drinks in, new friendship made, birthday tomorrow. Would you like to take this somewhere more private? The answer was yes. So they headed back to Jessie's apartment. CCTV captures the two making their way to Jessie's motel room. He lived just round the corner, having an apartment in city life. Jessie's arm around Grace as they walked into the foyer, and then into the elevator, up to his floor. That would be the last time CCTV saw Grace, and the text message that Grace had sent to a friend earlier, that was the last time we would ever hear from Grace. The next day was Grace's birthday, and as it dawned in England, text messages and tweets flurried Grace's phone, but no notifications were delivered. Her phone was switched off. Her family and friends started to worry, and then media did too. The world had no idea where Grace went, but those close to her knew something must have gone wrong for her to remain silent on her birthday. She was always in constant contact with her family and friends. But at this stage, still undiscovered, the final clue to her disappearance would be that CCTV camera, and that elevator, and Jesse Kempson. Jesse was born in 1992, and grew up in Wellington on New Zealand's North Island. His childhood was fragile. When he was 9 years old, his parents divorced, and his mother moved abroad shortly afterwards. The rest of his childhood wasn't special, but in 2013, he moved out of his family home after prolonged arguments, them accusing him of stealing and consistently lying. For the next few years, he moved to Australia and became a labourer, but that didn't work out for him either, and so in 2018, he moved back to Auckland. At this stage, Jesse was on the brink. He moved into a small motel studio apartment in the centre of the city, moving there after a fallout with his ex-housemates, who were increasingly concerned about his mood swings, womanizing, and threatening behaviour. Because Jesse was indeed, in fact, a pathological liar and a serial fantasist. He would ritualistically lie to everyone around him. To name a few, he lied about being an All Blacks rugby star, a playboy, an oil executive, and a gang member. He claimed he had cancer and that his parents were dead. He lied that he had a degree in law, and he boasted of plans to buy a waterfront restaurant. But Jesse was far from successful. Leading out of 2018, he had left a succession of failed jobs and shared flats behind him, being kicked out of previous responsibilities as a barman, a sales assistant, and losing his most recent job as a telephone salesman on the very day that he had met Grace. He was spinning out of control, and, unfortunately for Grace, despite her achievements, her strengths and her dreams, and against her odds, she slipped into his grasp. Jesse had indeed killed Grace, sometime late that night of December the 1st in his Sky City motel room, the eve of Grace's birthday. CCTV cameras captured Jesse leaving his apartment the next morning at around about 8 AM. And just several minutes later, at 8:07, he was seen entering a supply store, the Warehouse, on Elliott Street. There, he bought a large suitcase before wheeling it back to his apartment. Nothing sus. At 8:32, he was seen again leaving his hotel room to visit a local supermarket and bought himself some bleach, rubber gloves, and cleaning supplies. Then again, at 10:33, he left his apartment once more, entering a taxi, looking visibly distressed, to travel to a rental car company, where he picked up a red Toyota Corolla before driving it back home. So suitcase, check. Cleaning supplies, check. Rental car, check. What's next? Logically speaking, dispose of the body? Nope, not in Jesse's case. He, went out for a Tinder date. Bloody ridiculous. Living in the middle of a busy city centre really did not help Jesse with his crime. Surveillance cameras picked up a huge amount of his activities throughout the next few days. This included him parking the rented car at 7:30 PM, bringing a rented carpet cleaner to his apartment at 8:28 PM, and returning it half an hour later. And then finally, at 9:30 of the same day, surveillance cameras caught Jesse wheeling 2 suitcases out of his apartment room, both of them appearing entirely full. Jesse transported Grace's body to the car, where he travelled to Kumeu, Auckland. In the morning, he walked to a building supplies store, Western ITM, and bought a shovel. Once the body was disposed of, Jesse returned home. he went to the dry cleaners, cleaned up the car, returned it to the rental company, and on the 5th of December got rid of Grace's remaining items in one of the local park bins. By now, it had been 4 days since Grace's disappearance, and Auckland police were hot on her trail. On December the 6th, they'd located her whereabouts down to Star City Hotel, and there they were looking for a Jessie Kempson for questioning. At the same time though, Jessie was returning from a nearby shopping complex while police were in the lobby. They caught him by surprise, and after a failed attempt to walk away unnoticed, they chased after him. Oops. He was brought in for questioning, and his home, now a crime scene, was subject to evidence. Using a chemical compound called luminol, they found Grace's blood stained into the carpet. Back in the interrogation room, Jessie wasn't doing too well either. In his first interview with police, he lied when questioned on his whereabouts on the evening that Grace had disappeared.
Pan out. Yeah, pretty good.
But when brought in 2 days later for further questioning, he changed his story to one that did not align to what detectives were constructing.
You've indicated that you're willing to speak to us about the events of last Saturday. Is that correct?
Yes.
Tell me what happened last Saturday.
From the beginning.
Did you kill Grace Mullane? Okay. Jessie Kempson, you're under arrest for the murder of Grace Mullane.
There, Jessie Kempson was detained and arrested. Following surveillance footage, tips from locals, and Jessie's mobile data, investigators eventually found Grace's body in a shallow grave 50 metres away from a country road in the Waitakere Ranges Regional Park, about 21 miles from Auckland. New Zealand as a nation was in shock. Thousands attended vigils for Grace. Law enforcement clearly distressed by the news, and even their Prime Minister paying tribute.
Your daughter should have been safe here, and she wasn't, and I'm sorry for that.
While in custody, it was learned that Jessie already had previous convictions of sexually assaulting another British tourist just 8 months before murdering Grace. Just as he would later do with Grace, Jessie took his victim on a Tinder date before he would take her back to his motel room apartment. She recalled her experience to the jury, lying frozen and crying in fear on the bed as she was assaulted by Jessie. She had kept the attack secret until recognizing Jessie's face on the news following Grace's death. He had also been previously convicted for a series of other offences against his former partner. At the stand, Jessie claimed that Grace had died accidentally following their encounter, and that it was simply rough sex that went too far. Yeah, sure. Grace's father, who had flown from England to be present at court, looked directly at Jessie as the detective read out that Jessie had taken pictures of Grace's body and looked at pornography on his phone shortly after killing Grace. Phone data had also showed that Jessie made multiple searches that night following Grace's death. Those searches included rigor mortis, Waitakere Ranges, the hottest fire, large bags near me, and flesh-eating birds. On the 22nd of November 2019, Jessie Kempson was found guilty of murdering Grace Mullane. Grace's parents wept as they heard the verdict. Jessie Kempson showed no emotion. He was further convicted for 9 total charges of rape, sexual violation, threatening to kill and assault. And he didn't take too kindly to that. And that's the story of Grace Mullane.